Okay, guys, so we are live tonight with the Lee County Ready for College Initiative's newest video. So thank you guys so much for joining today and following along with us. Today's video is about finding the right college for you and how to make it affordable. So this is going to be about finding your fit based on your personality, the location of the school, financial reasons, basically the whole package of applying to different schools and picking one once you're accepted. So today we've got a room full of really knowledgeable people here. So Caitlin, if you'll start off by introducing yourself for us.
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Caitlin. I go to ECU. I'm a rising senior studying elementary education and concentrating in math. I hope to be a teacher for a while and then one day go back and get my master's to become a principal and then maybe one day be a college professor.
Alrighty, everyone. My name is Chandler. I'm a rising senior at UNCW. I'm double majoring in economics and Spanish. And after I graduate, I think I'm going to get my MBA.
Hey everyone, I'm Kay. I am a rising junior majoring in elementary education with a special education with children to help them find the best fit for them in the future.
And I am Laura. I am a rising senior at UNC Chapel Hill. My major is business journalism with minors in studio art and history. And my future career goal is being a business journalist for a major publication like the Wall Street Journal.
Hi everyone, my name's Kyra Bolden. I'm a rising senior at Guilford College, double majoring in Spanish and International Studies. And in the future, I'd like to be a world traveler as well as an English teacher.
All right, thanks so much, guys. And just a quick disclaimer for everyone watching, we are just college students giving our personal advice. This is not a professional. Definitely listen to professionals over us if we have conflicting advice or anything. This is just us giving our own personal experiences. So with that being said, thanks so much for watching last week's video. If you saw it with the college advisors, they came and did a video with us from both the high schools. So definitely go back and watch that one. And let's jump right on into this one. So talking about the right fit for college. Caitlin, will you take us through the different locations of colleges and how that might affect where you want to go to school?
Yeah, definitely. So when I was in the college admissions process, my top three schools were UNC Chapel Hill, Appalachian, and ECU. And after getting accepted into all three, I found myself really, really stressed. I mean, every night I was just so conflicted. I couldn't decide. But one thing that really helped me narrow down my choices was thinking about the location. Literally, just one night, I was like, I don't really like winters like that. And so I just crossed out Appalachian. And it made me feel so much better that it made my decision easier. And I really don't know why I didn't think about location before I did. So I know that I wouldn't like the heavier winters and like walk into class in that, and I'd be further from my home and from the beach, which I love. And so for some people, they would love the winters and love that atmosphere. So definitely think about the type of location you're going to want to be in because it can really impact your college experience. You know yourself better than anyone, so make sure you're asking yourself questions about how the weather will be, what there is to do around the college, the type of environment around the college, either like a rural community or a more urban big city. I know several college students who've had to transfer schools just because they're so unhappy with the location of their university. And like I said earlier, you know yourself better than anyone else. So just make sure you're thinking about the locations of the colleges you're applying to.
Awesome. Yeah, I did a summer camp at Boston University when I was in high school, and I really loved this school, but knew I could never handle a Boston winter. So that was like off the list for me. And Kyra, what about you? Will you give us a little perspective on why you chose your location?
Yeah, definitely. So similar to Caitlin, I knew that I was not a huge fan of super, super harsh winters. So that really helped me narrow it down. I knew that I wanted to stay in North Carolina, but I still applied to schools outside of North Carolina. I applied to a few schools up north and soon realized that I actually love North Carolina's confusing but usually warm weather. Ending up in Greensboro and Guilford specifically, I love how open the campus was, but also how kind of out of the way it was. It's kind of like in its own bubble. It's not downtown like most of the other schools in Greensboro, but we're just 15 minutes down the road. And I also really took into consideration how far away I wanted to be from home. So I really, over time, was able to appreciate how I can spend any of my free weekends going home and visiting family just an hour down the road.
Yeah, awesome. And will you go into a little bit now about, you mentioned you went to a private school. So talk to us a little bit about the differences in public school versus private school and what you found.
So one of the main differences that I originally was paying attention to when I was in high school was bigger campuses versus smaller campuses. So I knew for the most part that I wanted to go to a much smaller school, but that didn't stop me from taking campus tours or still applying. One of the main differences between a public and a private institution is the way that they're funded. So public schools receive state government money, and private institutions are mainly supported by endowment funds and tuition fees, which is why their tuition rates are usually higher. But I do want to go ahead and say that that should not deter you from applying because you never know what specific university scholarships you may qualify for. So in high school, I didn't really have a list of my like top schools besides UNC Chapel Hill, but that's like a school that I always like idolized going to since I was in like sixth grade. My mom really helped me and advised me to apply to any and everywhere I could get an application waived, which resulted in me finding a lot of smaller and private schools. I didn't necessarily rule out public schools, but my main objective was to graduate with as little debt as possible while all of the other boxes could be checked off, such as whether or not they offered athletics, the major that I wanted, and also the campus community. What I did find over time was that a lot of private schools that I was looking at did offer very generous financial aid packages, which was like music to my ears. And I did apply to three larger schools, but like I stated earlier, I soon realized that that wasn't the environment for me, and I would much rather prefer being on a smaller campus.
Yeah, I definitely get that. Personally, I'm actually the opposite, which is funny. I like being a small fish in a big pond versus the other way around. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying there. And just to piggyback off of what you're talking about with the financial aid packages, Kay, if you could talk to us more about that. I know for some students, the amount of financial aid that you get is the deciding factor for you. You might not have the luxury of picking just based off of these other factors here. So if you'll talk to us more about how to get the most out of your financial aid.
Okay, so yeah, college is definitely
You there, Kay?
have some financial aid than none at all. And each school has a different financial aid packages specific for each student. So if you're applying to NC State, your financial aid package will be different than someone else who's applying to state or any other school, just for example. My top schools were UNC and NCSU, so Carolina and NC State, rivals, but they were my top schools. I knew that with either decision that I picked, financial aid would be like a deciding factor for me. Coming from a single parent home, we didn't have like as much money as some other families would have had. So financial aid was something really big for me. So my main advice is just to apply early and start researching potential scholarships now. A lot of the time scholarships are due around the same time each year. So like a lot of the local scholarships are due around the same time each year. So even if you don't know the specific dates for the current year, looking at the past dates may help you to kind of get a timeline of when you should have everything done. So yeah, and also just knowing what scholarships would be available to you. You can always look them up on the internet, and different schools have their scholarships on their websites. So you can find them that way too. Also, really early as soon as it opens, because the later you wait, the less funds you get. The funds are usually first come, first serve. So if you do your FAFSA as soon as it opens, you're more likely to get more funds than someone who does it at the very end. Also say yes to grants and not to loans. If you can, like everyone always doesn't have the chance to get grants and tons of scholarships, but if you get them, definitely.
Sorry, I was muted there. But I think Kay's having some technical difficulties, so we'll have to revisit that in a little bit. But basically, I think what she was trying to say was to say yes to grants and no to loans if you can. So grants do not have to be paid back. They're similar to scholarships, whereas loans do have to be paid back, and usually with interest. So you end up paying more than you even were supposed to pay. Okay, so Kay's back with us now. We wrapped up what you were talking about there at the end. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the type of atmosphere that the schools have and why you might pick one over the other in that sense. So Caitlin, can you start us off there?
Yeah, so definitely whenever you're thinking about colleges, you want to think about the atmosphere around, not just your academics or the location or the financial aspects, but you want to think about how you're going to enjoy college. So think about like the types of clubs, organizations, sports, and any other involvements that you're going to be interested in that you want to get involved in with college. So just ask yourself like which schools include your passions and interests. Colleges will have a list of what they have to offer on their website, so make sure you're looking at that during the admissions process just so you can get an idea of maybe some of the things that you can get involved in. College is so much fun, and the more involved you are, you meet a lot of new people, make a lot of memories, and a lot of the extra like clubs and organizations look really good on college resumes, which we've talked about in another video. And so again, you'll want to stay involved in college. So no matter which one you decide on, make sure that even outside of academics, you'll have other things that you're going to get to enjoy while you're in college.
Awesome. Yeah, I know for me, when I joined my professional fraternity is really when I started to enjoy my time at UNC, which I wish I had done even earlier if I had thought about it. So definitely that kind of outside atmosphere does a lot for your happiness at a university. So Chandler, will you start talking about academics for us?
Yeah, of course. So academics, pretty much the whole reason you're going to college in the first place, it's super, super important. And this is going to sound obvious, but before you go, you want to make sure the college you're going to offers you a program of study that you're interested in. Any program of study that you might possibly be interested in at all, because chances are you're going to change your major. I mean, I have friends that have changed their major 3 times. So just make sure that there's multiple majors that you're interested in at that university, and make sure they're accredited programs that they're going to be accepted by any employer. That's important too. With the bigger state schools, you shouldn't have a problem with that, but there's no harm in making sure before you commit to going. And one thing I really want to stress is make sure that you're paying attention to the quality of the program rather than just the reputation of the school as a whole, because a school can have this great reputation. It's like, oh, everyone says it's a great school, but the specific program you're interested in may be a lot better at a lesser known school. So that's something you want to look more like past just the school. You want to really dive into the program that you're interested in if you know that going in. Something that personally happened to me is I decided to attend UNC Chapel Hill my freshman year of college, and I didn't realize that for my major, although I was accepted into the school, I wasn't accepted into my major. So how it worked was I wanted to be a business major, but I had to apply to the business school after my first year. of attending UNC. And there's only a 50% chance of me getting into that business school, and it's extremely competitive. So I ended up transferring before that. But if I had done that and got rejected, I wouldn't be able to major in business. And so that's something you want to make sure that if you're going to that college, you're going to be able to have that major without having to apply to it. Unless you're willing to take that risk, it's all about being realistic. Like, do you think realistically you're going to get into that major, or are you willing to take that risk? It's something to take into consideration, and it's something that like I slacked on and I didn't realize going in. So just make sure that if you're anticipating on majoring in something that you're able to without applying. All right. So class sizes are also extremely important. Kind of like Kyra and Laura were talking about, this kind of ties in with how large the university is. So larger universities are going to have larger class sizes. They're not going to be as intimate. The professor probably isn't going to know your name unless you make that constant effort to go to office hours to introduce yourself, which a lot of people aren't comfortable doing, and that's totally fine. I completely recommend getting to know your professors, and that's why I prefer the smaller class sizes at UNCW than at Chapel Hill. But it's all about what you like learning. And if you think you would like large lectures, with 100 or more students, that's totally up to you. It's just you have to keep that in mind when choosing a college. And whereas at UNC there was 50 to 100 people in my lectures, at UNCW there's like 20 to 30. It's also going to depend on your major. If you're a STEM major, there's going to be a lot more people in your classes. Just like keep that in mind when choosing what you think you would like thrive academically in. And then this kind of ties into my last thing I wanted to talk about, which is academic atmospheres. They're so important. They're so different at every school, and it's kind of hard to tell when you're touring how it's going to be. So what you're really going to want to do is maybe talk to people that you know that go to certain colleges. When I went to Chapel Hill, it was a high stress, it was rigorous, and a lot of people thrive in that. It's just like you have to know before you're going in. Is this going to be high stress, or is it more relaxed? People care more about other things. You really want to know that going in. My best advice is just talk to any of us or talk to people you know that are going to the schools that you're interested in, so you can get that, have that experience going in and you know what to expect. And like I said, challenge is really good. It's good to be challenged, but you want to make sure that you're going to be up for the challenge and that you're not going to be like sinking. Just being realistic. Again, I want to really emphasize being realistic. And yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about academics-wise.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chandler. Definitely know what you're talking about and all of that. And yeah, for sure, look into what your specific major is going to look like at your specific school. So a lot of the bigger programs, like for instance at UNC, even journalism, you have to apply to get in. So any specific school within a school, if that makes sense. So like journalism school, business school, things like that. You oftentimes, nursing school, have to apply for that major after you're already at the school. So definitely research that sort of stuff beforehand. For me, even with my journalism, I picked UNC specifically for the journalism school. So I knew ahead of time that that's I was actually, when I applied, I applied to the journalism school at the same time as UNC. That's an option. So I was pre-admitted to it. So I knew that I was going to be in the journalism school. I knew that that was a really good journalism school for me specifically, as well as just across the country, across the board. So even though I had some other schools that I really liked and thought I would do well with the atmosphere, for me, it was really about choosing where I knew I would excel with my career-wise. So definitely research that ahead of time and know what that's going to look like Chandler was talking about. And then let's dive into after you receive your acceptances. How do you determine which one is going to work best for you? So Caitlin, if you'll start us off there.
Yeah. So after receiving your acceptances, or maybe even finding out that you didn't get accepted into some of the schools you applied to, you're going to be faced with the choice of making your final decision. It can be super, super stressful and really conflicting. So just go ahead and like mentally prepare yourself for that. So I went through this really bad when after I crossed out. I mentioned earlier about the Appalachian. It was down to Chapel Hill and ECU, and I had always wanted to go to UNC. I knew it was very prestigious. My family really wanted me to go to UNC, and I had even whenever my family and my friends like found out I applied, they're like, "Oh yeah, like if you get in, you're going there." So it was already in my head like, "Oh, if I happen to get in, like that's where I'm going." And then I just started looking more into ECU, and I found out that they were originally an education school, and I knew that I wanted elementary education. Chapel Hill had dropped my major, so I would be majoring in something that I'm not really that passionate about. And so, just looking at why I wanted to go to school, I was already leaning more towards ECU. And then I found out I got an interview for a 4-year scholarship at ECU. And then once I got to the interview and I toured the campus, I was like, wow, like this is it. This is where I want to go. And then from there, like I have really, really enjoyed it. So I really think you should just listen to your gut about where you want to go, not where other people want you to go or where you thought you'd want to go. Like when it comes down to it, just trust your gut and go with it, honestly. Definitely like look at all the factors we're talking about though. Like I love the location here. I think I'm overall much happier here than I would be at Chapel Hill just because I have such a big program with elementary education. There's clubs specifically for my major. And we have a lot of internships and other opportunities that have really helped me to be successful with exactly what I want to do and why I came to college. And then there's a lot of people that don't get accepted into their first choice school. So don't I'm sure it's easier said than done. You're probably going to be upset. Anyone would. But you can still be really, really happy at another college and just make the best of your college experience.
Yeah, absolutely. My first choice was actually Northwestern, which I've mentioned in a video before that I did not get accepted into. And so at first it was just the end of the world to me. But then I started to realize, I'll be, as long as I get to do what I'm passionate about, which is my journalism and work like that, then I'll be happy, wherever I am. So that definitely was a hard pill to swallow, but ended up really being the best. I think I'm the best place I could possibly be, being at UNC, and I'm so happy with my decision now. So Chandler, will you talk to us about your tough decision and how you ended up at your happy place as well?
Yes, of course. Okay. Similarly to Caitlin, I also got accepted into Chapel Hill, and everyone made me feel like I needed to go there. And I wasn't completely against it, but I kind of forced myself to like it, like because I knew it was a great school and everyone was making me feel like I had to go there. But when I toured it, I just didn't like the atmosphere. I did not like how large it was. I remember having an 8 a.m. and I'd have to leave my house at like 7:20 because it was like a 40-minute walk because the campus is just so large. And I just remember feeling like I don't know, so insignificant because it's just so many people and everyone's super intelligent. It is an amazing school and it just wasn't a good fit for me. So ultimately, I made the decision to transfer to UNCW because I had always wanted to go to UNCW. I really love the atmosphere in Wilmington. UNCW has a great business school, and there's so many clubs here that I'm super interested in. I'm just a lot happier here, and that's why I really want to emphasize that while academics are, they're seemingly the most important part of college, it's important to mention that they're not the only important thing, and you really need to look at the college as a whole, because when you're happy and you're doing other things besides the academics, you'll thrive academically more because you're happy and you want to do well. When you have your extracurriculars, I mean, it really just makes the experience, you get so much more experiences, you just participate in more, you walk away with a richer experience if you're happy in all aspects rather than just academics. So that's just like what I want to push. Like, don't go to a school just because, like Caitlin said, because people want you to, or because it's like so good academically. That's super important. But you really want to consider the college as a whole and don't force anything. Because if you're unhappy, it's going to show in your academics, and it's going to show when you walk away from college and you don't have any experiences, like you weren't enjoying it. Basically, that's my experience. Also, affordability was a big thing. If I would have stayed at Chapel Hill, I would have been in so much debt because the tuition there is just more, and they raised the business school tuition by like $2,000 a semester, like my first year there. So just keep all of that in mind and when you're making your decision, for sure, because that's something I wish I would have thought about before I went there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to emphasize more, when I say like I picked my school based on journalism, that's not like, it wasn't a decision just on academics. That's what I'm really passionate about. So that's, what made me happy. So still in line, with what they're saying. It was just, I definitely don't kill myself over my GPA, that sort of stuff, because that's ultimately, not what matters in life. Definitely not what matters when you want to think back on your college experience. You want it to be about, the people you met, the experiences you had, that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, just to wrap up here, a little more on location, like Caitlin was talking about earlier. So one thing to think about is um, whether or not it's like a college town or if it's a school within a city. So like UNC is considered, Chapel Hill is considered a college town. So everyone around here is pretty much students or professors or grad students, that sort of thing. So when you go out to bars, it's going to be all students. When you're walking down to grab lunch on Franklin Street, it's going to be students, that sort of thing. So that's an atmosphere that I really felt comfortable in. It makes it a little bit, not that it's totally safe, but a little bit safer. And then also, I actually toured George Washington University, which is in DC, because I originally thought I was going to want to go to a school that was in a city. And literally halfway through the tour, I looked at my mom and was like, this is not it. I can't do this. My campus can't be in the middle of a city where there's like random people walking around. Like, it was just weird, which is totally okay if that's for you, but was just not for me. So yeah, just more to think about there. You definitely get a good sense of that when you tour a school. I definitely recommend touring the schools before, even if you can, before you even apply, really to get a good feel for it, because being there in person is really what's going to give you a good idea of what it's like to be a student there. So yeah, so anybody, except now there is the problem of coronavirus that you might not be able to tour places, but I know a lot of places have videos and virtual tours. So that's how I toured my out-of-state schools, was actually virtually. There's like videos that you can watch, or even like click through slideshows of, what stuff looks like. And then also YouTube is a great resource. People who video or vlog at their university, you can see it that way too. So just want to open the floor back up with anything else that you guys might want to add in general about this topic, or experiences that you've had, or any advice more that you have to give. Feel free to add here.
Yeah, so just one thing that I thought about, another factor whenever I was deciding between ECU and Chapel Hill, is talking with people who either are, gosh, I can't think of the word, alumni from the school or currently attend there. And that really gave me a perspective on what college life is like at that specific school. And I mean, and people are going to be real with you. And so if you know people who are either currently attending or have attended the colleges that you're applying to, definitely like talk with them. Like, I'm sure most people would love to talk about the college they went to. And I had a lot of people, that was another thing. ECU has a lot of school pride, which a lot of the big colleges in North Carolina do. But that's something that was personally important to me. And so just little things like that are personally important to you, like definitely look out for those and talk to people about them to hear real perspectives.
Definitely, for sure. Yeah, so anybody else have anything to add?
I was just gonna piggyback off of what you were saying a second ago about location. Kind of like what Stephen was saying, it's when you want to go to school in a city, it's really good for certain majors. Like if you're a business major, being in a city, the internships are everywhere. And instead of just doing a summer internship, you're going to be able to do internships like during the semester. In Wilmington, just for example, I go to UNCW, and there's a lot of entrepreneurship here. There's just a lot of small businesses. So I work at a small restaurant, a small franchise, and I've gotten a lot of experience in something I'm interested in based off the location I'm in. That's not something I would have gotten at Chapel Hill probably. It's just that's something you want to pay attention to that a lot of people don't think about. The location can really set you up with a lot of experiences that you're not going to get in the classroom. So just keep that in mind too.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, only last thing I can think to talk about is about how deciding whether or not you want to be in state or out of state. So that's something that you definitely should talk to your family about. And again, the financial aid has a big role to play in that, but we might touch on that later in the next video. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this video. We talked about how the location, the atmosphere, and academics of a school can all come together to make a college experience whole. So thanks for joining, and keep up with our new videos. So next week we've got one specifically on financial aid and scholarships. So that's going to be great for you guys to really learn from us, because these are some processes like FAFSA and stuff that are just really difficult to navigate if you've never done it before, which obviously most of you guys have not. So definitely keep a watch out for that video. Again, thank you so much for joining today, and we'll see you guys next video.